Today I'm going to be going through the typography project for Photoshop. These are a couple of examples of what typography looks like. You are taking an image and then you are inserting words into the image so that the image looks like it is painted with the words. So here's one of Einstein, and they had repeated the word genius over and over again at different sizes. Here's Mahatma Gandhi with the same thing, but this time peace. Here's Bob Marley, but the letters and words are all jumbled. Here is some dude with words that are inspirational. Here's Lil Wayne. Here is Slash. And here is Keanu Reeves. So these are ones that I've found on the internet. Some of them have words on them. Some of them are single words. Some of them are phrases. I'm assuming some of these are lines that he had. But ultimately, you're going to start by choosing words first for our assignment. So I've taken the first paragraph from Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451, and I have typed this out into a Word document. I only did this so that I can highlight it and then copy it and paste it into Photoshop. Next, you're going to open up Photoshop and you're going to click File, New. Then we are going to stay at the parameters that we have been using, which is a regular size sheet of copy paper. So that's 8.5 inches wide, 11 inches tall. We are in inches because we're in America. You can do landscape if you want, or you can do portrait. So I'm going to leave this at portrait. The resolution is going to be at 300 pixels per inch. The color mode is RGB color at 16-bit, and I'm just going to leave the background as white. Then I'm going to click create. Now, unlike other assignments that you've been doing, you are going to need to do this twice. So you're going to open up two workspaces, both with the same parameters. So since I've got this custom already built, I can just click that and create. So I'm going to have two different files that I'm going to be working from. Like I mentioned before, you're going to need some typing. So I typed this up in Word. So I'm going to highlight this and I'm going to Control C to copy. Then I'm going to go back to Photoshop and I'm going to select the type tool. So there's two different functions for the type tool. You can click it in one spot, and then if you hit Control V, it'll just keep rambling off right off the page. The other way that you can do this is you can left click and hold down, and then you can draw a space where you want to fill the words. So I'm going to fill up most of the page, and then I'm going to hit Control V, and you see that the words that I've typed up are now restricted to this box. So you're going to be using this as the background or the cookie cutter of our image. So I've got my words placed into the document that I am going to be using. And to make it look more interesting, I'm going to be highlighting and cutting out some of the words and changing the different sizes and placing them in different areas so that it looks more interesting in the pieces. So if I click the type tool, if I am in the area that has already been typed, the square box around my cursor will disappear. If I'm outside the type area, there will be a box. So I'm going to make sure that that box is gone, and then I'm just going to click in the beginning. So this opens up this type area again. So I'm going to take the first sentence, which is pretty iconic, and I'm going to Control X, which means cut that out. And then I'm going to click off the page so that I'm no longer working with this type box. And I'm going to just click in a different area to Control V and paste it into a new area. So now I'm going to highlight this, and I am going to make the letters bigger. So all of the properties can be manipulated on the right-hand side, or you can do it from the top toolbar. So now I've made the original type much larger than the rest. So I'm going to continue augmenting these words so that it looks more interesting when I stamp it. And I'll explain that a little bit more when we stamp it into the image that we are working with. Now that I've arranged the words and the typing the way that I want, I'm going to go up to where it says edit, and I'm going to left click on that. And then on the drop down menu, I'm going to click define brush preset. What this does is it turns your paintbrush into a stamp or a cookie cutter. So when you are going to put this on the image you are working with, it's going to make the imprint of the words that we just set up. So I'm going to name this, "It was a pleasure to burn one." And you don't have to change the name. You can use the default name. Next, I'm going to open up my folder and drag in the image that I'm going to be manipulating with the words. So I've got this fireman right here. I'm going to just left click and drag it into Photoshop. Now I'm going to arrange this so that it fills up most of the picture. So I'm going to hold down Shift, grab the corner, and then I'm going to drag it out so it makes it much larger. Then I'm going to hit Enter to place it. Now I'm going to take one of my selection tools. You can either use your pen tool to be very specific. You can use the lasso tool if you just want a general area, or you can use the magic wand tool to smart select. So I'm going to use the pen tool to cut out this figure. I can use Control plus to make it larger or Control minus to make it smaller. So if I'm working with a very specific area, I can enlarge it and then click around those areas and move it around. Once I have connected all the dots in my image, I'm going to right click in the middle and make selection. I'm going to make sure my radius is 0 pixels, then click OK so that my area is selected. I'm going to Control minus out to the regular size. Now I've got my whole fireman selected. Then I'm going to click Control J to copy selected to new layer. I still have a couple of areas that I need to clean up, so I'll do that real quickly and then I'll move on. Once I have my whole area selected that I want to get rid of, I can right click, make selection, make sure it's at 0 pixels, and then instead of copying it to a new layer, I can hit Control X to cut out selected area. After I have my subject matter all cut out, I'm going to select my main layer copy. Then I'm going to go down and make a vector mask or a new layer mask on top of that. We're going to select the vector mask or layer mask. Then you're going to go over to your paintbrush tool. When you select your paintbrush tool, you should be able to go up to the brush presets, and you should already be selected for the brush preset that you have already made with your words on it. If not, you can scroll down to the bottom of these brushes and select it. If it does not appear, you need to go back to your words and click edit, and you need to define brush preset. Make sure that your paint swatch is on black. Then when you hover your paintbrush over your piece, you'll notice there's all the words that you have already typed up. Now, when I left click, it will take out a bit of the, when I left click, it'll start cutting out those areas of your image. Every time you cut it, it'll be more and more defined. If I want just the words to remain, I can click Control-I to inverse and get the stamp effect from the words that I've cut out. If I hit Control-I again, I have the cookie cutters of the words that I've cut out. The last step is to add a background. So I have this picture of burning books that I'm going to left click and drag into my Photoshop desktop. I'm going to get it in the correct spot. I'm going to hold down Shift and make it larger, get it to where I want, and then hit Enter to place it. I'm going to left click on this new layer that I just made, and I'm going to drag it down so it is behind the image that I was just working with. In the case where the words aren't showing through very well, you can go back to your main layer. I'm going to shut off the eyes on the rest of my layers. So I'm going to make sure I'm selected on my main layer, make a new layer, and start using my paint bucket tool to fill those areas in on my new layer. Once I have all my areas filled in, I can click off my main layer, and then I can use my magic wand tool to select the area that I have just built. Then I can make a new layer and fill it in with my paint bucket. If I click off my silhouette area, now I have a backdrop that I can place my typography subject matter on top of. This makes the words much more pronounced. So you can toggle between using black, or if you want to use white, it sometimes works better depending on the background. Once you have this done, you have completed your typography assignment. Thank you for your time and your attention.
Do more, do better.